Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Engineering Today. And we're back with some updates. Honestly, can't say very interesting though, as these news are not about successful launches. So let's get into the details. October 1st, which was Thursday, indeed was not a good day for rocket launch programs, as both ULA and SpaceX's rocket launch were scrubbed on that day. SpaceX's Falcon 9 was scheduled to launch on Thursday, October 1st, with another batch of 60 Starlink satellites. But during the launch countdown, SpaceX officials aborted the launch due to an unexpected reading from a ground sensor. SpaceX's Falcon 9 launch was scrubbed at just T-minus 18 seconds before liftoff, thus making it the second last-minute launch abort on the same day. Both ULA and SpaceX's rockets were scheduled to launch from Florida's Space Coast in between 10 hours of interval after ULA held Wednesday's launch. The dual launch from the launch pads of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station and the Kennedy Space Center would have listed for two orbital-class rocket launches in between the shortest time interval from the Space Coast since 1966. Unfortunately, the back-to-back aborts of the launches not only poured water on that plan, but also delayed the launch for two separate payloads for an uncertain time. SpaceX initially planned to launch its Falcon 9 rocket on Thursday, October 1st, at 9:17 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time from Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, which was a few miles away from ULA's Delta IV launch complex. Falcon 9 was carrying the next batch of 60 Starlink satellites for the Starlink broadband program, in which SpaceX aims to launch a total of 30,000 Starlink satellites. This was the 13th launch for SpaceX's Starlink mission. The rocket was loaded with kerosene and liquid oxygen propellant during the preparation for the launch. As per schedule, SpaceX's video team was live broadcasting the countdown, but at T-minus 18 seconds, the clock was stopped and later declared that the launch was scrubbed. Standing down from today's Starlink mission due to an out-of-family ground system sensor reading, SpaceX tweeted shortly after the launch was called off. We'll announce a new target launch date once confirmed on the range. An updated official launch weather forecast just came on the same day from the U.S. Space Force's 45th Weather Squadron. The update suggested that the launch for the 60 Starlink satellites was scheduled for no earlier than Saturday at around 8:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. According to the official weather update, there was a 60% chance that weather would be compatible for the launch of the Falcon 9 rocket on Saturday, but any confirmation did not come from the company itself. It seems that SpaceX's Starlink satellite launch could be delayed for a few days more. SpaceX's launch abort was not only limited to Starlink satellite launch. The company was preparing for a second Falcon 9 launch with a payload of Global Positioning System navigation satellites for the U.S. military. This launch was officially scheduled on Friday, October 2nd, from Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. However, this launch was also scrubbed just 2 seconds before liftoff. The GPS-3 SV-04 is the fourth one of the GPS satellites lineup. The new military branch, U.S. Space Force, will operate GPS-3 satellite, which will join a larger satellite constellation orbit. SpaceX gives high priority to these national security missions, such as the GPS launch. The Falcon 9 rocket was scheduled to launch the GPS satellite about 90 minutes after its liftoff from the Canaveral Space Station. The company had prepared 2 drone ships, which were positioned on 2 different locations of the Atlantic Ocean, located a few hundred miles northeast of Cape Canaveral launch site. According to the company, once Falcon 9 would successfully deploy the GPS satellite, the first stage booster of the Falcon 9 rocket will attempt to land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. After that, the company planned to successfully recover the booster and send it to the rocket facility to reuse for the future launches. SpaceX had hosted a live stream for Friday's GPS-3 launch, where the live broadcast window was scheduled to open at 6:43 p.m. Pacific Time. At first, the launch was appearing to be proceeding smoothly, until 2 seconds to go when the clock stopped. SpaceX was starting the engine ignition sequence when it stopped the countdown. Just a few minutes after that, SpaceX tweeted, "Standing down from tonight's launch attempt of GPS-3-4, but the company did not specify what caused the launch abort at the very last second. Could be weather or a technical flight issue, but whatever it is, the reason for this launch abort is still unknown to us." Moreover, SpaceX did not announce a new date to launch the GPS-3 satellite. The previous week has been rough for SpaceX, as both its Falcon 9 launches were scrubbed and will be rescheduled again. Let's discuss about ULA now. Once again, United Launch Alliance aborted the launch of its Delta IV Heavy rocket, which was supposed to ferry a U.S. spy satellite, NROL-44, into orbit, was scheduled to lift off on Thursday. The launch was called off just a few seconds before the engine ignition, as officials detected an issue in their computer. This is the second time that the powerful 3-core booster rocket failed to lift off from the Cape Canaveral station. The rocket was initially scheduled to launch on August 29th, but it was scrubbed at T-3 seconds, even after the ignition of one of the rocket's main engines. The company then rescheduled the launch in between September 29th and October 1st. After ULA held Wednesday's launch, lastly, the Delta IV Heavy was set to launch on Thursday, October 1st at 11:54 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, carrying the same payload as the National Reconnaissance Office spy satellite. The rocket was mounted on its launch pad at Florida's Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, but unfortunately at T-7 seconds, officials declared that the launch was scrubbed as they detected an unexpected condition prior to the engine start sequence. Later, ULA CEO Tory Bruno tweeted referring to the scrubbed Delta IV Heavy launch. "We experienced an automated abort because a sensor reported a fault. Automated safety system operated as intended. Bird and payload are safe and unharmed. Engine ROFI igniters were not fired. Turbo pumps were not spun up. Mission safety first." According to Bruno, Delta IV Heavy launches include a total of 2 types of ROFIs, radially outward firing initiators. One type is attached inside the rocket's engine injector plate, which sprays hot gas to ignite. The other type, which is known as a hydrogen burn-off unit, is a part of the pad infrastructure and used to burn off excess hydrogen propellant. This is the part which is responsible for causing flames to lick the base of the 235-foot-tall, 72-meter rocket shortly before its engines blaze up in earnest. Thursday's Delta IV Heavy launch failure reflected the past incident when the rocket failed to launch on its first attempt on August 29 due to a hot fire aboard. Thus, it's the second time that Delta IV Heavy launch was called off within T-10 seconds. Previously, one of the rocket engines had already caught fire, although it was called off just after the moment. However, this time flames did not come from the engine on the rocket's triple-core first stage. An internet rocket scientist individual asked on Twitter, "So if the ROFIs didn't start, what caused the fire?" As per that, ULA officials replied on Thursday, "The launch table ROFIs ignited at T-14.5 seconds. The main combustion chamber, engine ROFIs, did not ignite." For now, the launch team is reviewing data and rechecking if everything is perfectly normal. The team is currently reviewing all data and will determine the path forward, ULA said in a statement. From August to September, the 2 last-second aborts created an obstacle for the U.S. spy satellite NROL-44's to its journey to Earth orbit. However, bad weather and some ground hardware have further delayed the launch of the U.S. classified satellite. "We are conducting a very detailed and comprehensive review of all of our preventative maintenance and pre-launch testing processes at the Delta pads and will make whatever improvements are indicated going forward," Bruno wrote on Twitter last month. ULA's Delta IV Heavy rocket has 5 more launches before it's retiring. Among the 5 launches, 3 of them are from Cape Canaveral, and the remaining 2 will be launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. After that, the company's next-generation powerful Vulcan Centaur rocket will replace the current Delta IV and Atlas V family. ULA's Vulcan Centaur will make its debut in 2021. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your valuable feedback in the comment section. This will help us to improve.